But before that, and it is something that I've stated to friends online, this is one of the greatest introductions to a Doctor I have ever seen. Created by MC Films, Doctor Who, the classic podcast. The Woman Who Fell to Earth, Episode 1. Hello and welcome to Doctor Who, the classic podcast. You're here on MC Films on YouTube. I'm Matt and we're going to be talking about The Woman Who Fell to Earth, the premiere episode of Series 11 of new series of Doctor Who. Now, my aim for this podcast is to be as informal as possible, to give an open discussion on the episodes in question. So what we're going to be looking at today is the opening of Series 11. A very interesting episode. So cast your minds back to 2017 in Peter Capaldi's final season as the Doctor, Series 10 of the new series. It was very unsure about who was going to be the next Doctor. There was no one really within the public eye that could legitimately take on that role. Chris Marshall kept popping up. Thankfully, that didn't happen. Thankfully, nothing against the man. I think he's a fine actor. I just don't think he would bring anything new and developed to the role of the Doctor, in my opinion. And then Jodie Whittaker was announced in the finals of the Wimbledon Cup. And it left a lot of people very unsure, myself included. At first I was thinking, are they only doing this to push an agenda? Are they not? Are they casting the right kind of person? We knew that Chris Chibnall was taking on the role of executive producer at this point, so it was interesting that he decided to go with Jodie Whittaker, having worked on Broadchurch. And Chris has wrote for the show and has wrote for David Tennant, proved himself to be a writer that, under his own freedom to craft a series, could do incredibly good things. Now, you take a look at his episodes in question. We've got 42 from Series 3. We've got The Hungry Earth and Cold Blood from Series 5. We've got Dinosaurs on a Spaceship and The Power of 3 from Series 7 Part 1, Episodes 2 and 4 respectively. And for the most part, he did a good job at telling a story. The narratives were there. Unfortunately, it was the execution sometimes and the pacing that just seemed a little bit off. So for me to see him cast as showrunner, I was fairly surprised. However, I didn't know who else I would have picked for that role. So we get to Series 11. What happens? It's your premiere episode. People are going to be tuning in. You've got a female Doctor. You've got an all-new era after what some people might argue was a bit of a moody, grungier Doctor Who that we got with Moffat, especially in Capaldi's series. It went from a fairy tale to a definite kind of tonal shift in Series 8. It became darker, it became broodier. I, for the most part, enjoyed it. However, there were some bits that did feel a bit depressing, but I think that Doctor Who as a medium has to be able to tell these challenging, these bleak stories in order to fully develop its characters. So we get to The Woman Who Fell to Earth, and it's jovial, and it's bright and happy and colourful, but it works, and it works surprisingly well. If we take a look at the characters, obviously the number one person for this whole episode is Jodie Whittaker's Doctor, the 13th Doctor, the first female Doctor in the role. I mean, what can I say? It is a fantastic portrayal of the character. Ultimately, down from everything, her mannerisms, her actions, her voice, her characterization has been key to this episode, and has been key right from the first draft of the episode. It seems as though The entire basis of the characterization is on Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. The dialogue that she's been given is inspiring, it's beautifully written, and it's performed fantastically. Compared to Peter Capaldi, so not saying that Peter Capaldi's delivery or passion was not there. However, it did get a bit bleak, especially you take a look at the Series 10 finale, and Bill dies, Nardole dies, those humans are going to die that are on the colony ship, all the Cybermen are dead, the Masters are dead. I don't think there is a single character that survives this episode. But you get to Series 11 and something twigs in the Doctor. I think his message in Twice Upon a Time, reflective, poignant message to the next incarnation of the Doctor, is something that Chris must have really listened to and homed in on. There are a couple of key moments that we're going to be talking about later that include Jodie Whittaker's Doctor, but I think in terms of characterization, she is fantastic. Next character I want to talk about is Grahame. So that's played brilliantly by Bradley Walsh. He's obvious parallels to Wilf. He is the grandfather figure. He is the older person within this TARDIS crew. So he might have a different outlook on how he sees the world. He's very caring, especially towards Ryan, towards Grace, kind of towards Yasmin, but I feel as though Grace kind of takes up more of that mantle as being the motherly figure. They are the mother and father of this crew, looking out for the children, the younger lot, when they've brought a drunken, massively wild friend home from a party. He's incredibly sympathetic. Although he doesn't act like it, he comes across as a little bit bold. You can see that right at the start when Ryan, Grace and Grahame are talking on the cliffside, and it's Grace that's telling him he can do it, and Grahame just dismisses it. Come on, we've got a train to catch. But then it's only in that train scene a few moments later you actually see that Grahame is trying incredibly hard to make this relationship work. And unfortunately, it's Ryan that does bash it back. So he is caring. He is trying out for the interests of other people. Now we get to Ryan. And Ryan's a very interesting character throughout this entire thing. So Ryan has dyspraxia. And I think it's perfect. I know it sounds incredibly strange to label what some people would see as a abnormality or to some extent a literary disability. However, the character growth that you get from him is fantastic, and it's something that I'm going to keep going and talking on about. So it crops up in the episode a few times when he is riding his bike at the start, when he's riding his bike at the end, when he's climbing the ladder up the crane to stop Tim Shaw, who I'll get onto in a little bit. It keeps cropping up and it keeps kind of niggling at him, which gives him something to prove. Now, whether it's Tosin Cole's delivery of the part, or whether it's the writing, or whether it is the genuine character, I feel as though Ryan can sometimes come across as a little bit dim. Sometimes. He can come across as being not the brightest button, let's say. And I think it's a fantastic way to sympathise with this character. To have a regular, everyday disability that people can relate to and experience his progression along with them from a characterisation and an audience connection point of view is really special, and I don't think has been in Doctor Who before. And this is the kind of angle that Doctor Who should be approaching. It shouldn't be, in my opinion, unless it's got a message to say, like the Zygon invasion and inversion from Series 9, it shouldn't be trying to get across this real-world reflection unless it's worth something to tell. And I think this is a fantastic way to bring it into the real world and to really connect your audience to this character. It is the first episode, however, and I'm taking that into consideration. These are all retrospective podcasts, and we'll see how he develops. The next one is Yasmin Khan. Now, a lot of people don't really feel that she has any character growth. However, you can tell right off the bat when she's talking to her sergeant, she's full of fight. She wants to do better. And that's nothing that we can blame her for. You look at someone like Donna, who was a temp, who when shown the wonders of the universe, knew she could do more. Martha travelled the entire world in Series 3, spreading the message of the Doctor. She knew she could do more. Rose didn't, but Rose is a completely different kettle of fish that I'll have to do an entirely separate video about. But Yasmin really wants to prove herself in control of the situation when she meets the Doctor on the train. That's evident from the dialogue. She's in way over her depth once she actually gets onto the train, but that's a good thing. She wanted to be challenged. Now she's faced with it. And who does she turn to? She turns to the Doctor. It's a very tutor-mentor relationship, like we saw with the Doctor and Bill last season, but it's not as literal. It's more subdued. It's a characterized tutor-mentor relation. Tutor-student relationship, as opposed to a friend or some other character like that. And this gives plenty of room for growth, to see Yasmin turn into her own character and to really develop what skills she... Oh, they didn't do a thing with her, did they? Grace is very caring and loving towards Ryan and towards Grahame. She's easily one of the best parts about this entire episode. Her actress, Sharon D. Clark, I believe. I might be getting this completely wrong. She is incredibly passionate about wanting to perform this character. She's clearly having fun with it. It's a very, very unfortunate circumstance that Chris Chibnall felt as though she needed to die in this episode. However, I perfectly understand from a narrative point of view the journey that Ryan and Grahame have to take on the series. It allows them for more room to grow their relationship throughout the rest of the series in the episodes that we're going to be looking at. However, it is such a shame that she had to die in this episode. I personally feel one of two things. It would have been better for her to leave during Arachnids in the UK, looking after Yaz in the past. So Grahame has got Ryan to look after. And I think it would be important for Yasmin to have that connection. Her parents don't come along, and it seems as though in Arachnids in the UK and Demons of the Punjab, she's not massively close to her parental or sibling relationships, but she is with her grandparents. And I think Grace would have been a perfect chance to give Yaz some character development. So maybe after looking after and mentoring Yasmin about keeping strong, especially in Rosa, keeping strong and really just fighting for what you believe in because it's the right thing to do, like the Doctor would say, but a more human approach, would have been a fitting end for this character, or at least taken a break from the series. Or should she have died in Arachnids in the UK? Could the spider infestation have affected Grace after she stayed at home and seen them return? Would that have been a better option? How would you connect it to Tim Shaw? Well, Grace was involved in the Doctor's life due to Tim Shaw. Could that connection potentially have impacted Grahame and Ryan's relationship to Tim Shaw at the end of the series? I know it's an incredibly stretched thing and a theory to say. However, I feel as though giving her more time to develop her character would have been really, really nice to see. So how are all the characters connected? So in the past, when we've had Amy and Rory, they've been friends from childhood that have grown up, work together and get married. That was a nice fairy tale aspect. Clara, she was the impossible girl and she just stuck around, didn't she? Which was a shame, because you could have done a lot with Clara's development. Bill, she was picked up at the university and she was left to die after being turned into a Cyberman. God, Moffat, your series is bleak. But then we get here. So what are the connections? So Ryan and Yaz went to school together. Grahame is Ryan's stepdad. Grace is his nan. a really beautiful moment. Grace was Graham's carer as he was going through remission for cancer. And I think that is a beautiful... Graham's already got his doctor. Whether he needs to stay on the TARDIS crew or not, Grahame has had such a hard time going that I believe Grace and Grahame are the perfect duo. Big Finish, get on it. I could listen to a whole series. It's a group of friends exploring the universe based on character and not being tied into the plot, and that is wonderful. They're exploring because they were caught up in this mad world together. Who would you want to be with if you could travel the world with a stranger? You would want to be with your friends. Although this one is a whole new experience to travel in. So the villains, who have we got in this episode? We've got Sim Shah, or Tim Shaw as the characters refer to them. He is creepy. His teeth are a sign of conquest, that he takes a tooth from a victim of whoever he's killed, and his face, once you get this reveal, is covered in teeth. It was incredibly creepy watching it for the first time, way back in October 2018. It was a shock reveal that I found, and I know it was quite a small shock reveal because it's a character's face. However, the idea behind it, that he has to sacrifice a human randomly selected to become a leader of his people, is just creepy, and it's downright evil. And that's what we needed, a basic villain in order to advance the characterization. And I think Tim Shaw is brilliant. He's incredibly chilling. So when he's killing Salad Man and he kills the granddad of the girl at the construction yard, he's creepy. He's got a very big presence, and I think that's helped by the actor giving a really, really chilling performance. It's a great villain motivation to continue a feud against the Doctor, and it resolves itself. Well, we'll get on to that. So the plot. So Grace and Grahame are teaching Ryan how to ride a bike. He throws his bike off after he gets frustrated that he can't ride it. Grace and Grahame have to go and get a train. So Ryan goes and collects his bike and comes across a glowing hexagon shape from the promotion material. I know, it's quite creepy. So we see that and a pod appears. He's not 100% sure, so he calls the police. At the same time, Yasmin Khan and her boss, supervisor, are feuding. Yasmin wants to do more than parking disputes. So when the police get this call, they send Yasmin down. Yasmin and Ryan, school friends, they get talking. As the train shuts down and the coil alien data information ball squiggly wibbly wobbly thing arrives. So Yasmin and Ryan turn up. But before that, and it's something that I've stated to friends online, this is one of the greatest introductions to a Doctor I have ever seen. I'll put up a clip from the first time that I actually watched this episode live. I was talking on a group chat to some friends when I filmed this.
What? Oh my god! Holy shit, I am sold already.
Surprise, a few seconds.
Oh my god, that was incredible.
Tell you later.
The Doctor falling through the roof on the train is incredible, and the music score provided felt so classic series. It was incredible to hear that Doctor Who theme woven into the soundtrack. Segun, I don't think you or anyone else could top that for me. It felt just so... You get the sense of they're aware that this is the character, and they're going to push it, and it's brilliant. So the pod is stolen and kept at a warehouse in Sheffield by, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was a guy whose sister had died and he was keeping the pod. I think there was some connection to that anyway. The Doctor, Grace, Ryan, everyone looks for clues as to what's going on. They go back to the house. The Doctor collapses outside of the train station and is then put into a really, really lovely regeneration scene within the house before we go to the pod. The coil creature that we keep cutting to is a great way to keep the villain in the background whilst focusing on characterization. The villain always feels like a threat and never put to the side. It's dangerous, it's always on the hunt, and I appreciate Chibnall's approach to that. So Tim Shaw arrives at the warehouse and the gang go back to Ryan and Graham's house, and they find out that they've got DNA bombs in them, so they scramble and undo the DNA inside of you, which kills you. Kind of relevant-ish. However, it was kind of unnecessary. They then travel to the crane, and Tim Shaw is kicked off and defeated. Now, the Doctor uses the DNA bombs against Tim Shaw, puts them within his body, and I can't remember the character's name, the self-help character, kicks down Tim Shaw and he teleports away. That's where we're at. At the same time as this is going on, Grace is electrocuting the coil creature and falls off the crane and dies. And whilst I knew that this was going to happen on Twitter, wow, it hit me. I was invested and it hit me. And it was emotional. Bradley Walsh's performance, top quality. My hat goes off to him, it really does. You could feel that he was in pain. And that's what a good actor should do. It never felt like they were reading a script. It always felt natural. And I think natural dialogue is some of the hardest to write. If anyone's seen my Doctor Who fan series, you'll know it's maybe not always key. So the funeral scenes and the after scenes outside Grahame and Ryan's house. This is some of my favourite moments within the entire episode. It's so incredibly filled with emotional moments, such brilliant character portrayals, and you can tell. You could just watch that scene and tell, because that basically sums up the whole series pretty much. Grahame is the philosophical, Ryan is the literal, and okay, in that scene Yasmin's not there, but Yasmin is the matter of fact, and yes, there is a difference between matter of fact and literal. And then the Doctor gets her outfit and teleports to where the TARDIS is, or should be. So before we get to the cliffhanger, I want to talk about the writing. It's sharp, it's quick, but it's got lovely key moments where it slows down. Chibnall is a character person. You can tell that immediately from Broadchurch. It had to be developed for characters to be real. And he's really brought that into this episode, and it works really, really nicely. Again, when the Doctor's regenerating on the sofa, that moment where we pan over from them at the table and see the Doctor with the regeneration wisp, brilliant. Grace and Grahame at the start, when they are supporting Ryan and talking on the edge of the cliff, that was lovely. The funeral scene was perfect. The Doctor's speech to Tim Shaw was perfect. What I love about that end scene is it's Graham's weakness at this point. So Yaz's weakness throughout this episode seems to be authority. Ryan's weakness seems to be dyspraxia. Graham's is the remission of cancer. What I love in Doctor Who, or any media for that matter, you saw it in Vincent of the Doctor, and it was very, very beautifully done. Having conditions or ailments that are very common, that aren't fixed by the supernatural, is a fantastic way to make characters vulnerable and to give them development. It's fantastic. It's just written in there that these characters, whilst they can travel the universe and save the entire world, can still be beaten by something incredibly simple. And it's inspirational for an audience to watch and absorb, to take in that yes, you might have something that is stopping you from your everyday life, but that does not stop you from being ordinary. That is from being extraordinary, not ordinary. And that's really, really nice that we're getting this reflection on TV. The visuals. Wow. So it is Double Negative TV, who with the main branch I believe worked on Blade Runner 2049. They look beautiful. The new cameras that they've got, or the new lenses on the cameras, filming now in 1920 by 960, so it's a 2:1 aspect ratio, are incredible. The director, Jamie Childs, worked really, really well to choreograph each shot to give it purpose, or to travel the shot, make up lots of different static shots with one motion. It's incredibly done. It's a upgrade on a massive scale for visual effects. And while Series 10 looked great, imagine what some of the scenes from the Eaters of Light could have looked like given this special effect budget. Look at what Series 8 could have done with the flying Cybermen in Dark Water Death in Heaven. You could have done a hell of a lot with that, and they wouldn't look badly shot. They don't look like the shot of the model and the shot of the live is from the same perspective, and it looks very strange. But wow, this feels cinematic. You've got slow motion, you've got direction, you've got camera moves, you've got drone shots. They're beautiful. I like it how it's set in Sheffield. It extends the Doctor's reach around the country. Now, in the RTD era, all that was pretty much affected was London. You look and a hell of a lot of things were happening in London to London. Rose was from London, they were landing in London or Cardiff in case of the Unquiet Dead. Having it in Sheffield takes it away from that main block, and it puts them away from the main action of the RTD era, but it also gives them more character because they're not just a girl from London, or 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 a girl from Bristol. Wow, that's really shaking it up. We've now got characters from Sheffield, and yes, you can say, oh wow, it's another big city, but it's just so far removed from that main central area. So the pacing, it feels slow with the extra time that's given to the episode. However, it moves along with lots of high energy bits, shots of cars moving, shots of chase scenes with Tim Shaw and the Doctor, shots of moving on the crane. The camera always seems to be moving, and that really helps the pace in the slower moments. But Jamie Childs knows when to really slow it down and give that Hammer horror suspense. I love it. The ending is left on a cliffhanger. I love it. The fact that you've got such an anticipated episode that is left open-ended after what I believe is a fantastic approach to characterization is the prime way to get audiences to come back. Yes, it didn't have to end on a cliffhanger. It's very classic series, and I think that helps connect the old and the new, and the new to the new, from the new series to this new era. It also connects and parallels Series 10's first 3 episodes, because they were all continuous, essentially, or for the most part, continuous one from another. You could put 2 shots together, the end of the pilot and the first one of Smile, and it would be exactly like it's another scene. I wouldn't have minded having a full series where each episode was a cliffhanger and started up from the next. I think it's a fantastic storytelling mechanism, and I really wish they developed it a bit more and could work on maybe crafting that in. Yes, it doesn't leave it as open-ended for extending the stories in between, like we see from Arachnids in the UK to the Saranga Conundrum. However, it would really make you feel like you're journeying with these characters and would make you connect to them a lot more, because there's no leaps and bounds in characterization. It's all real time, and I think that would be incredibly effective for Series 12. Now, the music, we've got a new composer. Murray Gold stepped down after 10 series, and Segun Akinola from the Royal Birmingham Conservatoire stepped up to the part. I didn't notice the music, and that's a good thing. It was atmospheric. The music was there. You could hear when it started. You could hear when it wasn't there. But you never got distracted by it. There was no first episode motif, essentially. Yes, you've got the Doctor's theme, but that really only plays bombastically twice within an hour episode. You take an hour episode of the 11th Hour, and how many times does I Am the Doctor play in that? It's approximately 4 or 5 within a space of 20 or 25 minutes. It's a lot. The Doctor's entrance when she falls through the train is brilliant. The Doctor's theme is inspiring and hopeful. The rest of the soundtrack subdued, creepy, ticking away, adding to the scene. The Sonic theme, Tim Shaw's theme, and the theme tune, the main theme of this era, is masterfully recreated and it's very welcomed. Murray Gold could sometimes do obvious music. His music would stick out that this is a new track or this is a key change. You don't get that with Segun. It's very soundscapey against what Murray Gold would do in terms of soundtrack music, and I prefer this approach massively. So after the cliffhanger, after the credits, after the blurred look of the new title sequence, we get the coming soon trailer. Now, normally in the past we've had lots of continuous clips of what we're going to see in the episodes, but this time we got a call sheet of actors who were appearing within the series. I prefer this. Having actors in the series coming soon trailer after the first episode is a good way to boost actor recognition for the audience, welcome people into the series. People will associate big names onto that specific episode that they might want to watch. You know, you look at Ralph Little and how bigged up he was for Series 10 after all the promos and the teasers, and he was just some guy, some silly little human on this planet of robots where you have to smile. But this way, it really makes you think, who's this, who's that, what have they been in, where are they crafting these people from? It gave my mum and my nan recognition of certain people who they hadn't seen in a long time of their own stuff, who tuned in for those episodes. Because the clips are carefully selected so that a lot of them appear in different settings, different locations, it makes the series look jam-packed. It makes it look like you're visiting so many different locations, so many different places. It's not obvious to tell which clips are in which episodes, unlike from what you have seen before, where if a certain character's in a certain some certain clothes or a certain hairstyle or certain characters interacting with others, you can tell it kind of makes the series a bit more secretive, a bit more unpredictable. I'm up for this approach. Key moments, we got the train scene from the minute we see Grahame and Grace on the train to when self-help guy says you don't get aliens in Sheffield. Brilliant. The villain's entrance when you first saw him and they're confronted on the rooftop. Brilliant. The scenes in the house with the DNA bombs. Fantastic. The warehouse, finding the video, that was incredibly creepy. That video on that TV, however, whoever labels it do not read or only watch this when I'm dead, really needs shooting. Building the Sonic was a fantastic moment that, yes, was leaked. However, I couldn't find it, and I only looked a couple of hours after it had been leaked. However, I did see the first clip of them on the train, and the music changed from what was in it, and I really kind of hope that they stuck with that because the music was quite nice. The scene on the crane with the Doctor confronting Tim Shaw, fantastic. The funeral and outside conversation before Yasmin says, you know, you really need to get out those claws. Brilliant. Loved it. So, that was then. What are we talking about almost a year on? Maybe a year on at the time that you're watching this. The characterization might not have aged well, depending on how the rest of the series goes, and seen on how it went, this is kind of the main bulk of the characterization, which is a real shame because it's brilliant. The visuals in this are really strong. It's got flaws in terms of the potential lost for characterization and how other episodes could have been. But it's not a fault of this episode alone, it's the fault of the other episodes being compared to this one. It's a reason why this one got 10.91 million. It's not only due to Jodie Whittaker's entrance. Repeats, people will have watched it more than once at friends' houses, recommended it to friends, and they would have tuned in. The music is stellar. It sets the mood of the scene as it should, more effectively than Murray Gold did, in my opinion. Murray Gold's music was sometimes telling you when to wail or when to cry. This lets the actors perform, especially when we get to later episodes, and it really does. It just adds to it. Take the music away and it would still be as effective, but it really adds that extra layer. The visuals are subtle, but they are incredibly well integrated within the scene, or within the entire piece. And we'll get to the title sequence next time when the visuals really start looking incredible for next time. It wraps up nicely with the characterization, but it leaves it open-ended for more adventure. And that's what a good opening episode should be. It should really set up your characters, and it should push them into a world, and then it should leave you wanting more. And this episode, leaving on a cliffhanger, does that incredibly well. So my final score for The Woman Who Fell to Earth is a 10 out of 10. For me, it's a fun episode with plenty to showcase from the new era, with character development seeping from every non-action scene. It feels like the characters have been set up for a purpose other than travelling because they want to. Characters are growing and will grow because of the Doctor's influence. This episode is about character, and it helps develop an interesting villain through the other characters. The visuals and music separate it from previous series while staying true to the Doctor Who formula. This could easily have been a two-parter, first one developing the characters and the second one ushering in the plot. And it wouldn't suffer as a result because you've got enough time to breathe and you've got enough time to fully delve yourself into this world. A fantastic piece of television to remind people that Doctor Who can be fresh, even after 55 years on television. And that's been my thoughts on The Woman Who Fell to Earth. I hope you enjoyed listening to this. We've wrapped up nicely at about 40 to 45 minutes, an average episode length. I will see you next time for episode 2, The Ghost Monument. Bye bye. Theme music by Alexander Urban and TARDIS elements by Daniel J. Patton. Background elements by Videohive. Music by Sego Nakanola. Audio used from the BBC show Doctor Who is copyright to the BBC. If you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you're notified every time a new podcast is released, or follow me on social media at mcfilms2018 on Twitter, or send me an email at enquiries.mcfilms@gmail.com. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing.